Hi, my name is Michael Evans. Today I'm going to talk to you about Jonathan Edwards and histography. In his article, A Dortian Philosophe, Jonathan Edwards, Calvin and Reformed Orthodoxy, Kenneth Mennica makes a case that there was much more to Edwards' beliefs than simply espousing the teachings of John Calvin and the Reformed tradition that flowed out of those teachings. Mennica points out that Edwards was a man heavily influenced by his context within the Enlightenment. Mennica looks at three aspects of how Edwards synthesized his Calvin theology with his Enlightenment philosophy. These are idealism, experientialism, and finally historicism. Due to time constraints, I will only be able to look at one of these areas, and that is idealism. Mennica points primarily to Edwards' posthumously published dissertation, The End for Which God Created the World, to convey this notion of idealism. In this writing, Edwards claims that the whole purpose of creation is to bring God glory, and that God communicates his perfect enjoyment through all of creation. All of this is fine and in line with Reformed tradition, but Mennica presents a few problematic issues with how Edwards fleshed out how this all worked. Edwards allegedly believed that all of reality existed in the mind of God, and that God recreates reality moment by moment, out of nothing. This is also known as occasionalism. And occasionalism states that every action or occasion is the direct act of God. Now, this can lead to problems when trying to ascribe moral responsibility to human beings, especially in the area of sin. Oliver Crisp, in his article on the orthodoxy of Jonathan Edwards, explores this issue further. Crisp concludes either Jonathan Edwards had to modify the traditional orthodox view that God is metaphysically simple, or embrace a panentheistic, or even worse, a pantheistic view of God. Now, panentheism is the belief that God and creation are codependent, and pantheism is the belief that God and creation are essentially of the same essence. So this leads to a problem if we're looking at Jonathan Edwards and there's a belief that he is a panentheist. And in fact, Roger Olson, based on looking at what Jonathan Edwards wrote, believes that he was a panentheist. Now, Roger Olson also points out, though, that even trying to define the term panentheism is becoming more and more difficult due to the fact that it is being used to explain relationships between God and creation it was never meant to handle. And he even concludes that there is a potential for there to be a Christian view, Christian pantheism, that is possible so long as the doctrine of creation ex nihilo is firmly upheld. Now, Joe Rigney, while not directly addressing this article that I mentioned by Oliver Crisp, but a book that Oliver Crisp also wrote on the same subject, he criticizes Crisp's assertion that Edwards' occasionalism would lead to a total breakdown in moral responsibility, by pointing out that Edwards explicitly claims that it is only because of divine dependence upon a God who is constantly remaking all of creation that actual being is possible, and therefore reality exists at all, thus refuting the claim that even if Jonathan Edwards was an occasionalist, that didn't negate the fact that human beings could be held responsible for their actions, because ultimately the only true reality was that which God created. And regardless of how a person interprets Edwards' views on the subject, it remains clear that he was heavily influenced by not just Calvinism and Reformed theology, but also by the Enlightenment thinkers of his day. And any serious analysis of Edwards' writings and beliefs must take this into account. Thank you.